Hey guys, it's Steve with Orlando Collector Deviants. Tonight we are here with the author, Ron, the great and powerful Baxley Jr. I can't do it as deep as he says it, and of course, the voice behind the microphone is Trish. I'm melting, Halsey.
You'll pay for that later.
I know. So, Ron, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. Had a few technical difficulties, but I think we got them all sorted out. Knock on wood.
Well, I'm glad you're here. You've been active during our shows in the comments for a while now, and I'm finally able to get you actually on the show, which is nice. And we are here. Hey, Trish, I left the book over there. We are here to talk about a couple of your books. Well, you've done what about a half dozen books, haven't you?
At least, yes. I have written everything from satirical science fiction to fantasy, and I've had some other stories published in other genres, but mostly science fiction and fantasy books.
And I know you because the first time I ever met you was at Lake Collecticon about 5 or 6 years ago,
Sounds about right.
and you have been my Oz resource ever since. Every time I see anything that has to do with Wizard of Oz, I think of you immediately.
That's probably a good thing.
Well,
I'm not the world's authority on it, but I have a lot of experience with reading Oz books and writing in the Oz universe.
and speaking of part of the Oz universe, I'm gonna start with a book right away. Ziggy Zigzags, the Light and Dark Fantastic, or Ziggy Zigzags, the Light and Dark Fantastic. Right here. Boom. I got the book. And thank you, Ron. I sat there and read it. I had a couple questions because you span over a couple different genres. You go with the Wizard of Oz world of
Mm-hmm.
Oz, and with Disney, I guess you say. I'm going to say because you got Neverland in there, Peter Pan, and all that.
Right.
And you talk about Tinkerbell.
Right. I don't think I mentioned Tinkerbell because, well, maybe
Actually, you
briefly,
did.
but
You did. No,
you're
I'm just
breaking.
saying actually, you did. You
Okay.
mentioned at one point Tinkerbell, so it's like okay,
Very briefly, yeah. Very briefly.
yeah. It was one like little sentence,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Ziggy Zigzag's The Light and Dark Fantastic starts out with the Welsh myth about corgis being horses for the elves and the fairies. And then I take that and use that concept and have Ziggy, who's based on my real life corgi Ziggy, go to different fantasy worlds. And you're right. He goes to Neverland. He goes to uh, Oz, and eventually ends up at Wonderland. He doesn't finish up his quest in Wonderland until Volume 2, which is um, due out next year.
well, I was gonna say because I saw the reference to it at the end of the book when the dark elf is looking at the little statues down there. I saw the reference to Wonderland down there.
Right. And then it actually ends and has kind of a little cliffhanger there with Logi, the logical elf, being trapped in Wonderland. And so there's a little cliffhanger where you're not sure what's going to happen with the elf, if he's going to be able to escape Wonderland or not.
Now, I know you didn't draw the book, but I did have a question. I'm gonna go page 18. I don't know if you can see. Boom, where it's showing all the pirates.
Yes,
Were they meant to look like zombies? I'm
they
sitting there, it's
are.
like
They
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 are.
are they are supposed to be pretty much like the undead. They what's happened is this is many years into the future, and the crocodile has become this malevolent force called Croc Top, and those are actual spirits of some of the pirates that are basically worshiping Croc Top.
Okay. 'Cause I know you kind of hinted that the oh, we got a question already. I know you hinted that pirates grow old and they can die and everything, but it didn't really say if they were zombies, if they were dead, or not. So I've been waiting to sit here and oh, we just lost him. Okay, David, when he comes back, because he was having technical difficulties with his internet at his house. And oh, there he is. He's back.
Sorry.
There he is.
Little surprises here and there, but nothing dangerous.
Hey, no problem.
Yeah, they are basically like the undead or spirits, or just we didn't elaborate on that too far, but they are um, they are basically kind of in the afterlife. So you could read them as zombies or spirits, whichever you prefer.
well, zombies with telepathic powers. Now that is awesome.
That's scary as hell.
Uh-huh. Because it did say that they had telepathic powers. So it's like zombies with telepathic powers. That's your worst nightmare.
Right?
Well, that's one of the
And when
reasons that he wants to get that Ziggy wants to get the lost boy out of there and have him grow up so that he can become an author at Oxford and write stories where good defeats evil, and that basically will kind of get rid of more of the evil. The more stories we are put out where good prevails.
Now I'm gonna go over to David's question. It says, is Vincent illustrating the second volume?
Vincent has already illustrated the second volume, and there's a secondary artist who's going to be working on some of the volumes as well. But all three volumes have Vincent's black ink work done on them, and not all have been colored yet. But Vincent's black ink work goes up through all three volumes.
Cool. And Rachel Chambers says, good evening. Great to be here. Thank you for coming, Rachel.
Rachel's a Facebook friend and fan of my work, and has also written some reviews as well.
Hopefully they're good reviews.
Yeah.
Hey, well, any review is a good review because that means they've read your stuff. So I look at it that way. Even if it's a bad review, at least they read it and they think enough of it to mention it. So it's still good. I'm from the old school that any press is good press.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if somebody hates it so much that they want to write something about it, that'll convince somebody to come see it.
Uh-huh. That's how I kind of look at it.
Some of us are just stubborn enough to go read something that somebody gave a bad review to, just to make up our own.
I'm one of those.
Yeah, me and Trisha are those. It's like, okay, everybody says this book is so bad. I want to see why they say it's so bad.
Right.
It happens with a lot of movies too, where everybody pans the movie. I go in and watch it, and it's like, it's not the greatest, but I've seen a lot worse than this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I can think of Venom. A lot of people hate Venom, and I actually thought it was a decent movie. Okay, let's go back to the book. Sorry. Now, how did you come up with the? Oh, before we go there, so is he the? Is I can't even remember what his name is. The
Ziggy?
Lost Boy. No, the Lost Boy. Is he the last Lost Boy there is, and that's why he had to go save him, or
He's
he's
one
just
that wants,
saving?
he's one that actually wants to grow up. The rest of them are still cavorting around uh, Neverland, and he actually wants to escape there and become an adult.
Okay. Now, I
We've
was going to
discussed
ask.
it before with several others, but he has a specific purpose. He wants to become an author. He wants to leave Neverland and enter the adult world of publishing.
Now, I was going to ask. Would you say that this book is suitable for kids?
Um, I have said ages 10 and up because I know a lot of older elementary school students read classic comic books or even modern comic books, and there is some Captain America style material in there, and that's why I say 10 and up. Um, Ziggy and Zephyr the Flying Monkey fight a neo-Nazi, and that's very Captain America esque, and so that's why I say for older kids, because I don't want to say that because there's no gratuitous content in it like extreme violence or and there's definitely not any gratuitous nudity or anything like that. So
Well, I don't know. Ziggy's kind of naked half the time when he takes off his saddle.
I think Ziggy would look really silly in clothes the whole time. But yeah, he does have his saddle. He would look like a Beatrix Potter character, I think, if we put a little jacket on him and booties.
Now, I did like how you did make reference to comic book heroes a couple times in it, but like where he hides his saddle so he can be in disguise and people don't know who he is, just like heroes hide their costumes.
That was a definite reference to Superman and his cape and his costume, yeah. And that he kept hiding it out in a oak tree hole versus a phone booth, or changing near an oak tree instead of changing in a phone booth. Yeah.
So at least that's all he was doing at the oak tree. I know if any of my dogs go to an oak tree, they're doing something else.
Oh yeah.
So he held back. There's some other references too. The flying. He has to use pixie dust to do it, but the flying is definitely a superhero trope, if you will. And so I had to say, well, he managed to, through his connections to the elves, get the hook up with the pixies and get some pixie dust so that he could fly.
Now, I did have a question, and I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read the book, but I do have a question. Like the Lost Boy, where he got the pixie powder just like Ziggy,
Yeah,
but he was still riding Ziggy. I'm like,
yep.
couldn't he just like fly next to Ziggy instead
He
of
could
having to
have,
ride
but
Ziggy?
I think Ziggy wanted to make sure Ziggy's very overprotective and wanted to make sure he was secure on the journey. So if it
Okay.
would, just you can, and he's so used to having characters ride on his saddle. He was a horse, if you will, for the elves. So he's used to taking on that role. That's why he
And
had to shrink. That's why he had to shrink Tittle, the lost boy, down. There's that one scene where you see him shrinking down magically, and that's how he's able to ride on his back. Otherwise, it would have broken his back.
which I understand. I'm just sitting there, and this is just me, and it's not like I'm trying to find holes in your logic. I'm just like, but if he's flying, why does he need to ride on Ziggy? I mean,
Ziggy's
Ziggy
a lot.
goes.
Ziggy's a lot faster. Ziggy has access to the portal away from there. Ziggy can direct him in a quicker way to where he needs to go if he rides on the saddle. Ziggy knows where the exit is, so to speak.
Now, this book was Reader's Favorite Book Award finalist.
That's correct. That's basically um, you, it's about the same. It was an international award, but it's kind of like getting an honorable mention. It wasn't first, second, or third. I guess you would say it was fourth place in that contest.
Well, but that's good if you were a finalist. I mean, at least you got up there with them.
Exactly. It was, and I was a novelist for many years and had read comics off and on, but this was my first graphic novel. So I think that was really good for that to have gotten to that level.
Now, what was the first book you ever wrote?
Say that again.
What's the first book you ever wrote? We'll kind of go down the path of how you came to Ziggy.
Do you want actual published book or first book I ever wrote as a child or first
Well,
published book?
you can start. We got time. You can start whenever you want to. What
Um,
time period?
the one, probably
We
the
can talk
one
about kids.
we could, probably the one that led me on the path to Oz was the Talking City of Oz first edition, which was published in 1999 by Mark Lammers, the Vanitas Press. He was a Oz author himself, and I had done some writing for the Bomb Bugle, which is a publication of the International Wizard of Oz Club. And then I found out about Mark Lama, and I submitted to him my manuscript for the Talking City of Oz. They were going to have a centennial contest, or they did have a centennial contest for through the Oz Club, and I missed the deadline for it. So I submitted it to Mark Lama instead. And eventually, what happened was the PDF of that book eventually ended up online, and that's how some of the Oz festivals started, specifically Ozstravaganza, found out about me and started wanting me to come to their event.
Now, was that? Did I put up the correct book that you were talking about, the Talking City
Yes,
of Oz?
that's the second edition, and the first edition just had some little hand drawn illustrations by me and maybe even Mark Lama, but that second edition was illustrated by Gwendolyn Tennille, and she's done some other illustration work for me as well. We actually grew up together, so and but then recontacted each other later in life.
Now we got a comment. Boris is saying, "Good evening, peoples. Hide your valuables." Boris is here. Hey, Boris, how you doing tonight? Now, what gave you your love of writing?
Well, when I was very young, I like a lot of '80s kids. I would play with action figures. I played with He-Man action figures, and I would invent my own little stories with those action figures and would write them down with illustrations. And just being able to sort of play around with ideas at that point is what got me started with my love of writing. Also, I had a love of reading. I liked the books of Roald Dahl when I was a kid. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Twits, James and the Giant Peach, also Judy Blume books. A lot of the classic children's authors of the '80s and before were ones that I read, and so I think good readers make good writers.
Um, so how did you get into like the whole love of Oz?
Um, well, I always watched the 1939 MGM film The Wizard of Oz particularly with my mom and sometimes my sister. My dad was always busy working several jobs, but I think I watched it with him some too. But we would usually watch that on the annual broadcast on TV. And then around 1985, I started playing a Oz computer adventure game. It was by Wyndham Classics, and it was based on the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and it was based on a few of the other books as well. But what I discovered was that it didn't fit with the MGM film, and so it actually led me to start reading the first few books in the Oz series, the L. Frank Baum Oz series, of which there are 14 books. Now, I didn't finish all 14 until later in life, but the first few I read around fifth grade, in addition to a lot of other fantasy books and everything.
Now,
Another,
I was trying to buy some time so we can show everybody what you look like as an '80s kid. I knew I had it somewhere. I was trying to find it.
That would be me when I was probably 5 or 6. Yeah,
But see, I think we all wore the same kind of clothes back then.
yeah. There are a lot of earth tones, a lot of stripes,
I
plaids.
bet you if there was ever a picture of me, you'd see me in the same like stylish shirt and everything, because that's how parents dressed you.
Right. Another thing that made me really like Oz was I grew up in a small town, and I actually returned here to be a caregiver, Barnwell, South Carolina. And much like Dorothy, I felt kind of trapped in a rural area and wanted to escape to somewhere else. And so that's been another reason that I always liked Oz, because um, it was taking you away from kind of your mundane rural town and then taking you to somewhere fantastic.
Hey, but you know what? I know exactly how you feel because that's how I got into comics. I'm from a very small town, very small. I've said it. I've told some people like when I went to school, two towns together, and my graduating class was still only 71 people, and that was two towns put together.
Oh wow, we,
We
we were
didn't
a
get
little
paved,
bigger than that, but not by much.
and we didn't get paved roads till 1990. So imagine going through the skateboard fad on dirt roads, you know.
Um, I
So
think you win. You win as far as being a rural area. We have a lot of dirt roads, but we had paved roads too, and some stoplights.
no, we didn't get stoplights until like almost 2000s.
Oh wow,
Yeah, like I said, it was a really when people say they come from a farm town, it's like, nah, man, I came from a farm town. You got a lot of people don't realize. Like I said, when I tell everybody two towns put together, and I still only had 71 people graduating, but the thing is, those 71 people that graduated, we grew up together. You
right.
know, it's one of those where these people, like my kids, just went to graduated high school and everything, and they don't know half the people that they graduated with.
My class was small enough. My graduating class was small enough that I pretty much knew everybody in that class. Yeah, I can't remember the exact number because I'm horrible with numbers, but I know that I knew just about everybody in the graduating class, and especially the college preparatory folks, because that was the curriculum that I ended up being in. So
Well, it just so, but I feel because you said you from a small town, and that's what got you into Oz because you could go into a different world, and that's how I got, like I said, comics. That was my escape from that life, you know. See,
right, I mean,
speaking of your graduation, there you go. See,
yeah, what happened? No. Thank you for the stroll down that Nisha lane, as Robert Williams said.
now we got a couple comments from Boris. Boris is doing good. Set up a fake ATM outside a marijuana dispensary and traded cookies for cash deposits. Made a ton of cash. That's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
And he wants to know why is everybody in the 70s and 80s Sepatone? Because we didn't have um, high definition back then. And then he
We're
says,
doing it as an homage to 1939 Wizard of Oz. That was in Kansas. It was in sepia, so we did that filtering just for you.
back in old country, Boris' hometown of Augusta, yeah, we're not going there, was so smart our school had a graduating class of 5, and 2 were ducks and 1 was a possum, and the possum was valedictorian. And David says, Ch. Okay,
No say.
enough said.
Oh, having a lapse for a minute. I should have. Oh, Pogo. When he was waxing poetic about the possum and all I could think of was Pogo. Remember the comic strip with the yeah. There were a lot of puns in that one and country humor, and it's been a long time since I've read that one. But that's all I could think of with that last diatribe.
Okay, so we talked about your first book. What was the next book? I mean, how did you take us the steps through what you went through to get to Ziggy, to published, and because you've got 4 published, right? 5 published.
Um, four books published by YBR Publishing. I've had a mix through my life of independent presses and self-publishing. So if I were to go into it all, we'd be here many hours. But when there were times that I wasn't published through an independent press, I was self-publishing. And for a while, they had these on-demand web publishing outfits, like Lulu and CreateSpace, and I used those for a while. And that was mostly when I was doing more satirical science fiction, and that was right around the new millennium. And then eventually I started going back towards the Oz fiction again and did a second edition of the Talking City of Oz, and then started doing collaborations with another Oz author, started an Oz Wonderland series, and then after that ventured off again to do my own Oz book. It's just sort of followed that same path since then.
Now, when you're doing like the Oz books, is there certain things you have to stay away from, or is it kind of open reign?
It depends on if you're trying to do books that are strictly in line with the L. Frank Baum series. My Oz Digs the Seventh series is a satirical Southern version of the Oz books, so it doesn't adhere as closely to the rules of Oz, so to speak. But if you're trying to continue the L. Frank Baum books, then there are certain rules you try to follow, and sometimes Baum broke some of these himself. But there's someone said there's a no death rule where characters just stay basically around the same age. For a while there, Oz was blocked off from the rest of the world through a magical barrier. So you had to deal with that issue. Powder of Life, for example, there's certain rules of Powder of Life. You can turn inanimate objects into actual living beings using Powder of Life. And if you sprinkle that powder on those objects, you can say, I think it's Wuog, Chuog, Puog. And those are the magic words. And you spin around on one heel, and that brings those items to life. Have you ever seen Return to Oz, or familiar with the books that
Yeah.
formed that? You remember the Gump? That's how the Gump was brought to life. The Gump with a Gump head was attached to some couches with some ferns, some palm leaves or ferns, and then he was brought to life with Powder of Life. Jack Pumpkinhead. That's how he was brought to life, with the pumpkin head and the sticks for the body. He was brought to life with Powder of Life.
Hold up. We're going to go back up to a couple comments real quick. David says the chemicals used in photos from 70s and 80s faded images to sepia tone. But why do me and Ron look sepia right now? Oh. The chemicals in our food? Okay, and before we get to the next question, I am going to put a disclaimer, because we put out there to stump Ron on Oz trivia, and we put a prize out there for people, but I'm going to put a disclaimer that it can't be some obscure independent title that has only been seen in a country of 2 people. That kind of stuff. I mean, it has to be.
That's not fair.
Yeah, that's not fair. It has to be kind of could be a widely known thing. That I'm going to put that disclaimer, because it's not fair to Ron. I mean, because you could come up with your own fan fiction and ask him a question and he'd get it wrong just to get a prize.
Well, I can't even remember the name. There's a famous Russian author that did translations of the L. Frank Baum books, but then did his own spins on those. And I can't even recall that name because I'm horrible with Russian for one thing. But
Well, we have our first question for you, and this is Boris. And he has trivia question. In the Tin Man song, If I Only Had a Heart, there's a Disney singer on it as a cameo. Who was the singer / character?
it was the actual actress who portrayed Snow White in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I cannot recall. He said I could say the character name, right? Not the actress's name.
Yeah, he is. If you can say who the cameo, the singer / character. So.
Yeah, just the actress who portrayed Snow White. She goes, "Wherefore art thou, Romeo?" During that part.
So see, there you go. And
Did
I'm
that
not gonna
satisfy
fact
Boris?
I'm not gonna fact check it, but I know Boris knows the answer and he'll fact check it for me. Because Boris, if anything, he is honest when it comes to that kind of stuff. Now you can't see, he even says bingo. So you got it. Now you can't trust Boris to be honest if you leave him alone in your house, because when you come back 5 minutes later, your house will be empty. I mean, he even stole my little goldfish, and that's not cool.
I read somewhere that the actress who portrayed Snow White was not allowed to be given vocal credit by Disney when she did other work. So she may not actually be credited in the credits for the MGM. I'm not sorry. MGM Oz film.
Now, on top of being an author,
I
you
almost said
also
Warner Brothers because Warner Brothers now has the rights to 1939 MGM Wizard of Oz film. So that's why I said that. Sorry. Go ahead.
Boris says that's because Steve and Trish have nice things. Well, Boris, my goldfish aren't real gold.
In Oz, they might be.
Boris lost.
Oh.
L. Frank Baum and Pierce Anthony. Well, much later, Pierce Anthony always loved the puns. So, yeah, you might actually have goldfish and silverfish and bronze fish in Oz.
Now, David says her name was Charlotte. And then Boris says the site said only that she was paid $1,000 for the line. And so it's Charlotte Carlotti. But the fish can be trained to maim people. Yes, goldfish can be trained. I have seen that. But can they be trained to write a book? Yeah.
And can they be trained to anti-maim people?
And David says no. What are you saying no about, David? Because I'm kind of confused. Is it Charlotte, Carlotti, or fish can be trained to maim people?
And are you saying no to them being able to anti-maim people?
So,
which would be to spoil them.
Your autocorrection sucks, Carlotti. Not my autocorrection. All I do is I post a video. Autocorrection, that's all on your computer.
Why does Carlotti sound so familiar? Is it Carlos Carlotti who did Pinocchio? Or I may have that wrong too. I apologize. Someone will correct me in a minute because I can't. I'm not sit and look up things while I'm trying to talk.
Because he's everything Oz. Disney, he's on the line. Okay, so we know that. But Disney's one of your favorite things, though, right?
Yeah, I truly enjoy Disney. Of course, speaking of Pinocchio, as we know with a lot of other films, it diverges from the original. The Disney version diverges from the original work, as we know. So.
Carlotti is the name of the Snow White singer.
Right. Collodi is who I'm thinking of, I think, with Pinocchio. Maybe.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know names. That's you got me on that. I know Pinocchio was a good movie when I was a kid. Still a good movie now. Probably not so PC anymore. I'd hate to see what they have to do to change it to make it
Who?
The
Pinocchio.
scene on
Oh
the
yeah.
scene on Pleasure Island is still horrifying when his friend turns into the donkey right before his eyes. That's one of the most horrifying scenes in all of cinema. And the original book was really, really terrifying. You don't want to know what Pinocchio did to the cricket. You probably do know.
Oh no, I never read the book. It's one of those. I never started reading books about movies until I got older.
Okay, cool.
So we all grew up on the
We
Disney.
can't have read everything. That's what I always tell people. There are hundreds of books out there.
So what did he do to the cricket? Did he step on it?
He smashed it.
Oh, see, and I could see that.
Not Jiminy Cricket.
But see, I
Yeah.
also know a lot of these Disney movies that are these great fairy tales. They were actually evil in the original books.
Oh yeah, they were bad.
Yeah, they toned down a lot of the content. Um, like the wicked stepsisters, and horrible things happened to them in the original fairy tale. And I don't really want to get into all the gruesome details, but
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Well, because Boris really wants a Pixel Pal,
Right.
so he wants to know. The Munchkins formed a group as a result of their participation in the movie. What did they name it? The Lollipop Guild.
hmm.
Uh-oh.
Does he mean the actual person who headed up the Munchkin actors, who was
Yeah,
sort of like their spokesperson, or does he mean an actual group name?
I'm thinking what they called it.
It wasn't the Singer Munchkins, was it?
It just says the Munchkins formed a group as a result of the partition. So, kind of like they formed a union. So what did they call their? Or he says it was an advocacy group. So
The weird thing is, I went to multiple Extravaganza festivals before some of the Munchkin actors passed away, and spoke with them in person and heard a lot of presentations about them. And I think he's actually succeeded in stopping me because I can't think of what the advocacy group would have been. And I know Margaret Pellegrini's probably screaming at me from heaven right now, but I can't.
okay, well, tell us. And while we're waiting, we'll go back up here to. I just call her Peekabella Chew because that's how I know her. She says Sleeping Beauty was the worst on from the books to,
She's gonna
and
be upset.
then
I'm already stumped.
and Boris says, but the cricket was back in the sequel as a cyborg Avenger in Pinocchio 2 Puppet Judgment.
I can picture him with all his little cricket pieces with mechanical parts added on, much like the Kidman was created.
That's funny.
That's another dark origin story, by the way.
He takes off the top hat and there's a freaking laser. Okay, so Boris says, according to Billy Barty, they formed an advocacy group and then changed the name to be more PC.
Okay.
Well, then
So what was the group's name?
Yeah, what was the group's
Come on,
name?
Boris.
The gathering of little people on the set led to the formation of Midgets of America Advocacy Group, known as Little People of America, according to activist Billy Barty.
That makes sense. Yes, midgets became non-PC. Yeah, and then little people was the preferred term. That was a true historical one. I'll have to keep that one in mind.
Okay. And now Peekabella Shoe wants to try to stump you.
Oh, everybody gets to stump me. It's like I've been.
Oh,
stumped.
yeah. Yeah,
So now I have to keep going. All right, great.
yeah. This is going on for a while. If you're playing as a girl character in this video game from 2004, a TV in your house in the beginning of the game will say, "A girl with her hair and pigtails is walking up a brick road," a reference to the 1939 classic, The Wizard of Oz. Which video game was it?
2004, 2004 would have been right when I was working for a private school and probably wasn't doing any gaming at all at that time. Um, my students mentioning it.
Oh, well, you stumped him so bad we lost him.
Lose your suit, Larry.
There we go.
How is it Final Fantasy? Was that the beginnings of Final Fantasy? I don't know.
Oh, Final Fantasy's been around for a long time, way
Longer
before
before
2000.
that, yeah.
But
I
it
have
could.
I
So
like computer adventure games. I like to see our online games like King's Quest, Space Quest, what have you, and some Nintendo games. But I have no clue about that. She stumped me.
so Boris says not sure if it's fair as it's not true movie trivia, and I think he's talking about his question up there. And then he says the answer to Peekaboo Chew is Leisure Suit Larry.
Leisure Suit Larry came out way before 2004, though.
Oh yeah, he's just making a.
Yeah, I know. That's one of those.
Yeah,
I mentioned liking those Sierra Online.
And says, "Uh-oh, we broke the guest."
I am still trying to recuperate. Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
And then Mr. Lance Footer says, "What up, Ron B?"
What up, Lance?
And Lance, you got to go back and you got to look at the intro to this show. You're actually in one of the pictures with Ron. I picked that one specifically because you were in it. I know you guys are like besties.
Yeah, Lance did a really cool cover for me of a book called Disney Ability. I try not to broadcast that one too much because of the stuff that I do for the travel agency. I try not to promote that one too much because it's Disney related, but not. It's more like Disney fanfic, you know.
Okay, so we should have known that this had to do with Pokemon. She said Pokemon Fire, Red, Leaf Green. You should have known it would have been a Pokemon trivia question.
Oh,
Duh.
And Boris says his answer was as far as Boris's question.
but I was proud of the Disney Ability project because it's actually written in second person and allows any disabled child to be the central character within the book. But
That's cool.
yeah, and
Now,
it's a kid who's like he or she is trying to raise money to go to Disneyland for just one day, but then finds out that there's this group that's trying to change everything about Disneyland.
yeah, it's called the CEO. Oh, sorry, I didn't say that out loud.
And that's why I can't talk too much about it because I saw this information. I'm not criticizing the CEO, but I'm just
No. I don't want to get you in trouble.
In fact, in the book, the character says that he likes all the Star Wars changes that have been made to Disneyland. He just doesn't want everything that was classic about Disneyland taken away. You know, and that's basically what he keeps talking about as he goes through.
Well, see, I know Lance's favorite thing is going to Disney World when he's down, and I know you love Disney and Disney World and Land and all that. Me and Trisha lived here for many years now, and the most we've done is been on the little boats outside to take us to the hotel that her mom was staying at. We've never stepped foot inside of Disney World.
Are you talking about the boats that the ones that are like cars and they're like The ones
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
These were the little boats because you can like take a train to get to the hotels or
Oh
boat.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. The classic one on Lake Buena Vista. Yeah, the old school boats. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the closest we've been besides Disney Springs, or what do they call it now? Is it Disney Springs now?
Disney Springs now. It used to be Downtown Disney.
Yeah,
Yeah,
downtown
it used to be
Disney.
downtown
They
Disney.
kept the name Downtown Disney for Disneyland's shopping area. But yeah, it's Disney Springs. Um, my mom's family was from Jacksonville, so we were able to stay with her side of the family and go down to Disney World a good bit uh, when I was growing up, and um, it's a special place to me because it was one of the places where my family really kind of got together and spent time together and relaxed, and so it has special memories for me.
Now, David says, "How about asking Ron some relevant questions regarding Oz? I have to disqualify myself from asking questions."
He's
And
an
then,
he's an expert. He could ask some really obscure ones. He has performed. David Skipper has performed as L. Frank Baum throughout the country, and I actually interviewed him for um, Disney Avenue, which was an online blog site, and there he has in those interviews he discussed being Walt Disney. He performs as Walt Disney throughout the country as well.
that's awesome. Now Boris has a question for you.
Okay.
True or
Oh,
false? The horse of a different color had to be put down because it had eaten several munchkins when the cameras weren't rolling, costing the
False.
production thousands in extra
False.
costs and a week delay to recast the parts.
False. Have you been visiting that special ATM that you discussed earlier, Boris?
it would have taken more than a week to find more munchkins.
Actually, they had a lot back then.
I think
They
they
did.
were called the Singer Munchkins, though, but I may have that term wrong. But the gentleman who got them together, well, it wasn't much of a gentleman. There was a fellow who got all those Munchkins together from all throughout Europe and everywhere. Yeah, there were a ton of them. And I should say little people who portrayed the Munchkins.
And Rachel laughed at that one. And Lance says, if Dorothy got the ruby slippers, was she now a witch?
Ooh, good question.
Well, the ruby slippers did have magical power, so it depends on what your definition of witch is. Um, if you think that having an object that has magical powers makes one a witch, then yes. If you think that just that the possession of magical objects doesn't make one a witch, then no.
Yeah, but if you go to that, I mean, they considered him the Wizard of Oz, and all he had was normal stuff that everybody
Right.
thought
Yeah,
was
illusion.
magical.
Later in the books, he did learn true magic, though, in the actual Bomb series, but he did start off as a charlatan. You're right.
Boris was giving you your answer is false. The real culprit was Margaret Hamilton.
I'm not even going there.
You don't have to. Boris did.
Leave it to Boris.
He certainly doesn't bore us, does he?
Oh, that was a good one.
Hey, look, Ron can hand it back. Now, now, what have you think? Have you seen the show Wicked?
Yes, I haven't seen it live. I've had to watch it just through YouTube and through listening to it on a CD. I've always wanted to go see a live performance of it.
I was going to ask you
I
what
read
you
the
thought
book.
about it.
I think it's an interesting take on Oz. Uh, I think that, and I'm trying now. My brain's like trying to stretch for the term. Um, I'll call it a twist because I can't come up with a literary term right now, and I'm kicking myself because I can't think of it. But I like that it takes the who was the antagonist and makes her the protagonist, and vice versa. I like that. I like that it's a twist. Deconstruction is what I was trying to think of. It deconstructs the original Oz books, but also has a lot of homages to the original Oz books as well.
Now,
Makes Linda out to be a hypocrite in many ways, and a lot of people have said that. A lot of Oz fans have said that at times. They felt that Linda was a hypocrite, because she knew about the slippers all along.
yeah. Well, it kind of goes. I've never seen Wicked. I've never heard it. Closest thing I've got to is Oz the Great and Powerful,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of gives the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about that? Where they go more onto how the witches came about?
I thought it was an interesting backstory on their creation, like that basically that the Wicked Witch of the West was formed because of unrequited love. I thought that was an interesting take on it. And I think the other one was just evil to start with. Her
Yeah.
sister had always been evil. She came out of the womb evil.
Now, besides the original Wizard of Oz, do you have like a favorite Oz movie?
Um, Return to Oz.
Now is that the and I could be wrong because they had a live version and a cartoon version,
The
correct?
Disney version. Return to Oz. Live
Okay,
action.
the live action. Because I think my first adaptation to Return to Oz was the cartoon version way back when.
Well, this one combines two of the L-frame Baum books into one relatively seamless film, and it had darker elements, but the Baum books had dark elements too. So,
No, because I think what the cartoon version that I remember was Journey Back to Oz.
I have vague notions of that, and I can't even speak to it because it's been so long. It's been too long since I've seen it. There were several different cartoons. I think even in the '80s. I think even, and I hesitate to even mention his name, but Bill Cosby was involved with one where there was a live action. There were live action scenes, and then they would show the actual cartoon as he was going through.
Yeah, well, they've just done so much because it is um, a great story that you can build on. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, Return to Oz takes another character from one of the later Oz books and combines her with Mombi, and she's got different heads that she puts on, so it's pretty dark. She can put different heads on, and I think it's I always mispronounce her name, but she in the books it was I think Princess Langolier, or Queen Langolier, and she had all these different heads that she could put on. Well, they took the evil witch Mombi and gave her that ability to put these different heads on after she had decapitated these different princesses. Pretty dark
oh yeah.
for a kids movie.
Chula has another question for you, and this should make David happy. This is an Oz question. What was the real name of the dog who played Toto?
And I should know this, and I'm having a lapse. Terry? No, is it
I
Terry?
thought, he was gonna say Ziggy.
The only thing that's coming to me is Terry, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're right. It is Terry.
Okay.
And she even said, "Yep." I just went over to fact check it. And Boris says the cartoon was 1964 and made for TV, he thinks.
Ah, okay.
Well, I'm not as old as
So
1964.
are you guys keeping score with the amount of stumps that these people are doing? Because how are you giving the prizes? 'Cause
Well, there's only been well, two stumps, but even Boris says his wasn't really movie related. So I think Boris would be cool because he's gonna come steal it anyway. So
Exactly.
and Pink Bell Shoes also got paid more than the Munchkins, and
exactly.
Toto made 125 per week, and the Munchkins made 50.
I was at one of the Extravaganza festivals before Margaret Pellegrini passed away. She was known as the Flower Pot Munchkin, and she was talking about how Terry made more money than they did and all this. And she goes, and this is long before she had passed away. She goes, well, guess what? We're all alive, and now Terry's dead.
How
And
awful.
yeah, but she was a feisty lady, and just she had to know her humor, and she got away with it.
Oh. And Lance says, I met one of the original witches from Wicked at a show. Her name was Claire Deming. I'm looking over here at the small print, and I could just read it better when I pop it up. And then says, Boris doesn't deserve the prize as his question wasn't true Oz trivia. It isn't, but it is because they actually formed it because of working on Oz. So it's one of those little tidbits that would be on Jeopardy. That's where I get all my knowledge is watching Jeopardy.
Well, how about Chula's? Didn't Chula have one that stuffed me?
Yep, she had the Pokemon one.
Yeah.
And I give her credit because she really stumped us because we all should have known.
Yeah, but I haven't played Pokemon Red, Green, like in years.
I've never played Pokemon.
I know, but I haven't played in years. So what are you drinking tonight?
Coke Zero. Nothing else in it.
Coke Zero,
Drink
sugar.
of champions.
Cherry Coke Zero.
Ah.
And then I also add my black cherry red. I can have that because there's no carbs in it, so I'm good to go. It doesn't screw with my diabetes.
Or as the late Wilford Brimley would say, diabetes.
Let's see. Lance says, who owns the original Wicked Witch hat now?
I have no idea. I don't know.
She says, LOL. Me neither. Rush. Tish. I think he's trying to say Trish. I think he's been he's been hitting the bottle more than I have.
What the what?
I have some good candidates for the Wicked Witch of the West hat, but I don't know who owns it now.
Now, well, here's a fun fact from Boris. They lost 4 stuntmen in the movie as the house kept killing the performers every time they dropped one or placed one on the actor to film the scenes with the shoes.
He's having too much fun.
And see, I don't know if that's true or not, because that could be something that's true. I could see something like that happen.
No. Even when the feet roll up, it's a little special effect. You know, it's not somebody actually under there. But that's hilarious.
And Rachel says the yellow brick road leads to the dispensary.
Is that? I guess well, it does lead to poppies eventually. So
yeah, puppies, which puppies. So did Frank ever, or L. Frank or whatever, Did he ever say where he got the inspiration for Wizard of Oz?
I think there were many different inspirations for him. He, well, for one thing, he grew up in a very pastoral town to start with, Chenango, New York, which has these green rolling hills, and you could almost think of it as sort of like Munchkin country, But then his father was involved in the oil business for a while, like I think for carriage oil, and so that's sort of where the Tin Woodman concept. In the books, he was the Tin Woodman. In the film, he's Tin Man. That's kind of where that concept grew out of. And then at one point in his rural background, I think he was actually afraid of a scarecrow, and so that kind of was pulled into it. He was shipped off to military school in Peekskill, and some say this is apocryphal, but I'm not sure. Some say it's true, others say not. But there was a yellow brick road there within that town, the town of Peekskill, and there's still a piece of it still there. And some say that's where he got the yellow brick road from. And I believe there was a mansion on the hill there that some contend may have inspired the Wicked Witch's house, but that again is apocryphal. So I think his pastoral background, his rural background, several things from his childhood and older life, such as being connected to that oil business and other things, just inspired all these different fantastic facets.
Okay, hold on. Lance is leaving us. He says he has to get back to work. Love you, Trish, Steve, and Ron.
Love you, Lance, brother. Take care now. Thanks for stopping by.
You take it easy, Lance, and we'll talk soon. We always do, somehow. And then Boris says they actually sucked the blood out of that actor with a 6,500 psi suction pump in order to get the legs to roll up. They deleted the sound as the crunch/popping sounds made everyone on the set sick to their stomach.
Okay. Now I know what I'm going to have a nightmare about tonight.
And Rachel says, take care, Lance. Out of, I know we keep talking about the Wizard of Oz and not really your books and everything,
That's
but
fine. I love talking about Oz. Another thing I forgot to mention about L. Frank Baum was he was a, and I may mispronounce, Theosophist. He believed in spiritualism, being able to commune with the spirits and all of that. So that may have entered into his work as well. And then there are other facets of his life that keep popping up in his books. He was a China salesman, for example, and then he ended up having a little China country in Oz. So much like most authors, he wrote what he knew. Though he's writing in a fantasy world, he pulled things from his real life. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah.
He also raised Hamburg chickens, and then he ended up having a character called Belina who was a talking chicken. So.
Now I'm thinking about talking chickens. What is your favorite aspect of Oz?
The idea that quirky people of all types, or quirky characters of all types, can work together, can cooperate, and reach a common goal. I think that's a big lesson that we all need to learn.
Yeah, because pretty much everybody lived and worked together. Besides, well, the flying monkeys worked together too. But they did not throw poo.
Right.
I mean, but if you think about it, man, monkeys throwing poo that flying by you.
If they had been in the 100-acre wood, they might have thrown poo.
I mean,
Oh gosh, could you imagine?
but just think about that. I mean, flying monkeys throwing poo.
Oh, Baba, please don't throw me around.
Now, what? Okay, go in that direction, what's your favorite aspect of Disney?
Favorite aspect of Disney?
Yeah.
It would probably have to be Mickey Mouse because that was my first stuffed animal when I was 3. There's a long story that involves that, and I don't want to go into it here, but um, yeah, Mickey Mouse. Even Walt said it all began with a mouse. Yeah. Oh boy, Pluto.
Now, okay, why does Pluto? This is the age-old question. Why is Pluto a dog and Goofy's a dog, but Goofy's a human dog?
I think they had a lot of anthropomorphized animals anyway. I mean, you've already got Mickey and Minnie as anthropomorphized mice, and then you've got a talking duck. Well, what's wrong with having a talking dog? And then later on, they even expanded that universe and said for the ducks, there's a whole Duckburg, where there's all these talking duck characters of various sorts. Well, there's also that with Goofy. There's a whole Goofy realm where there are dogs of all types that talk. So they,
Oh yeah, Goof Troop was one of my favorites that I grew up with, and so I love the whole Disney afternoon. I grew up with all that. DuckTales, Goof Troop, Chippendales, Rescue Ranger. But I could never understand, and I know I'm not the only one, of why everybody else is able to talk and everything, but Pluto is still a pet. Pluto is like one of the only animals in the Disney world.
well, Chip and Dale. Well, I'm not talking about the Rescue Rangers ones because they did talk about like the classic Chip and Dale. They would only mutter little words every once in a while, like yeah, yeah, and then but a lot of times they made little chattery noises and that kind of thing. But
Yeah, but they still walked on 2 feet,
yeah,
thought and all that, and
I,
and
I
Pluto
guess
was still a dog.
I guess since it's so central to American culture and all, we all like in American culture, we all love our pets. So they had to give even anthropomorphized characters pets to make them more realistic, to make them more like typical American characters. There's even a cat called I think the cat Figaro from Pinocchio ends up being owned by Minnie, right? Minnie Mouse eventually.
Yeah,
So
but
they had to kind of
I'm just sitting there wondering if Goofy has that like little hatred towards Mickey about having one of his like kindred people as a pet.
Could be.
You know that Goofy's not as stupid as people think he is.
maybe
Makes you think.
Goofy is from the future. He's an evolved dog that came in a time machine back to where Mickey and Minnie were living. And he's really not all that foolish after all. He's actually his foolishness is wisdom.
David wants to know, what do you think of the Ren and Stimpying of Mickey and friends now?
Oh boy. Okay. Um, I don't like the new style of Mickey and Minnie. I don't like the style of them in the shorts that are out now and in other places. Like I probably shouldn't say that, but
No, could you?
so,
Because not only, and I'm gonna take this just even kind of past Disney. They've done that in the comic world with Teen Titans and Thundercats and all that kind of stuff, where it's like there's no more. They've Ren and Stimpyifying. I mean, if you look at Teen Titans Go, I mean, to me that is one of the biggest disrespects to it. Um,
manga quality to it sometimes if they change it. Or,
Well, the original Teen Titans had the manga quality, but
ah,
it stuck with more of the comics. Where this is how let's see how stupid we can make the characters because that's what's funny. Um, I even hated that they changed my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to in the Rise of the Turtles. They're not my turtles. Um, and they changed them to where they're all different kind of turtles, and Raphael is the leader, and they fight a wizard now and not Shredder, and it's like they keep changing everything that was good. What they made the new Thundercats look like Steven Universe almost.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
think
So
it'll change the classic look of a lot of those characters. They did the same thing with She-Ra, and I don't care for it either.
yeah. So yeah,
And
I don't
one
think
could
it's
argue.
just a. I think.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, one could argue that the classic Mickey and Minnie were very rubbery too. If you look at their arms were like little, almost like little pieces of rubber string when they would move at times. But yeah, the but this is different than that. You could argue that they're going back to that, but they're not really. The newest style, I don't even know how to describe it, but I think he had a good description. The Ren and Stimpy style, and it's not even that good because Ren and Stimpy had these wonderful close-ups at times. Like if they would do these grotesques. Remember the guy with the beard, and when that one guy with the beard, and when he grabbed up either Ren or Stimpy and went to like brush him against his face, you saw the stubble like tearing away at Ren or Stimpy's face. Well, you don't even have those aspects. It's not even that photorealistic. It's just very crude. The modern, some of the modern Mickey and Minnies. Sometimes you'll see them use the old school style again, but the little cartoon that's coming on lately and has been used in some aspects of the theme parks is not. I'm not a fan.
And Boris says Goofy was a result of gene splicing by Professor Ludwig van Drake.
Yeah,
See, you don't hear about him anymore. At least I don't. But I'm not into all that with Disney much anymore. Now that my
he
kids have grown and I don't have grandkids, I don't really watch Disney Channel anymore.
well, Disney Channel changed through the years as well, but the Von Drake, he was in a lot of the educational films. I remember the old reel to reels that they would show in school from time to time.
Uh huh.
He's in a lot of those.
And on the Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday nights, they occasionally would have him on there teaching us something. I miss those days where you had a good, like you said, the Wonderful Wizard or Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday nights, and
Yep.
Saturday was Mutual of Omaha and that kind of stuff. And now you got so many channels with nothing good on.
Exactly.
But
Have
that's
we
a
lost
good
them?
reason. But
Have we
see,
lost our peeps? Have we lost our folks?
but what I was going to say, with all those channels and nothing good to watch, it's a good reason to pick up a book and read.
That's right. It's a good reason to have some escapism in my Fantasy and Oz books and Ziggy Zigzag's Light and Dark Fantastic, the Oz Digs the Seventh series, all those books from YBR Publishing.
Yep, hold on one second. Hold on. Because what we got.
Oz
Now, I
does,
was going to.
go ahead.
No, go ahead and say the title.
Oz Doesn't Dig GCC at Emerald City. And I know you probably want to say OZ because my publisher wants to say that too. But the reason it's pronounced Oz is because in the books, Oz Diggs would often just say his nickname was Oz. It's pronounced Oz. So that's why I say it that way. And it's distinguished between Oz the country and Oz the person. And Diggs is his last name, and it's a pun. Oz doesn't Diggs. GCC at Emerald City.
So, what is the GCC?
Greeneville Community College. But imagine if I had put that in the title, then it would have been really even longer.
Then your name would not be able to be that big. You'd have to shrink your name.
And you actually see the campus there on the cover. That's a clock tower there, and the clock ivory tower, the dorm, not the dorms, the classrooms.
We got some
And
comments.
that purple Martin staring ominously out at you from the cover is central to part of the book.
Oh. Okay, I'm going to read the comments. Sorry, I'm not sighing at you. I was sighing because I was reading the comments. Rachel Chambers says yes, her too.
Well,
And I'm wondering if that's missing the shows that we grew up with.
oh yeah, probably so.
And David says Walt Disney sentenced animator Ward Kimball to animate Von Drake.
Ward Kimball was one of the famous old men that one of the original animators. Too bad he got sentenced to do that.
Boris wants to know, where did the red brick road go? And David said, the red light district.
Oh boy.
And Rachel says that was about Disney. And
out of context. Oh no.
And like Munchkin nudie bars.
Do you have any brain bleach?
I'm sure that's on Rule 34. Route 34, maybe? Rule. And LOL. Okay. So see what happens.
This is what my friend Oz author James Wallace calls the adultification of Oz. He tries to stay away from that in his book. But as far as where the red road goes, some said it just led to part of Munchkinland anyway. Others have contended that it may have gone all the way down to Quadling country, which was a red country where the true Glinda lived in the books. But Glinda is actually the good witch of the South in the books and lives in a country that's mostly color-coded red, Quadling country. So it kind of makes sense that the red road would go down to Quadling country.
Man, the Lollipop Guild really takes on a new meaning if you follow the red brick road. Okay, and on that note, let's go back over. Let's talk about Golden Goosey. Oh man, now we're talking about getting goosed.
Goldie Goosey of Oz. This is a children's picture book for ages, I would say anywhere from 4 to 9. It combines the classic fairy tales of Jack and the Beanstalk, the goose who laid the golden eggs, and some Oz motifs as well, and incorporates even an old folk song into the narrative. Go tell Aunt Rudy is incorporated into the narrative as you go through, and you can actually, if you know the music, some of the music is actually included towards the back of the book, and you can kind of sing part of the narrative with children as you read aloud the story to them.
Now we're going to go back over to the comments because I'm actually interested in this one that David said. There's another strange book in the Oz canon. Adolf Hitler is in Oz.
Don't get me started on that.
Is it bad, or because now you have me interested? And I'm not a neo-Nazi or anything like that. It's just him in Oz. I mean, you would never think of the two together.
Right.
No. My one issue that I have with that particular book is that I think the author tries to rehabilitate Adolf Hitler through exposure to Oz characters, and I don't see that. I don't see Adolf Hitler as being able to be rehabilitated. That historical character, I don't think, would have ever changed, and to me, was one of the vilest people on the face of the earth, and had no call for redemption.
We'll see.
Now you've made me say it. That's just my opinion.
Oh no, and I agree with you. And I just hearing the two together in the same book, just you know how we were talking about sometimes something happens and makes you want to read a book, like we were talking about the reviews.
Yeah.
Now I want to read it just to see how they did it.
Kind of like in the new producers, when they did "It's Springtime for Hitler in Germany," and everybody thinks at first they're all offended, but then they think, "Oh wait, it's a parody," and then they get interested in it. It's a satire, and then it becomes a hit. You know, yeah.
Okay, so Boris wrote a book over here. Glenda was a real villain of the movie. She antagonizes the Witch of the West after she loses her sister, gives shoes which aren't hers to some 13-year-old kid, and then sends the kid to some false wizard who sends the kid to kill the Witch of the West because he's scared of her. And then Glenda shows up at the end and says the shoes could have gotten the kid home at any time.
Well, yeah. I, that's kind of like the premise of Wicked in a way. Trying to portray Glinda as the villain. As the antagonist. And I think Dorothy though was maybe only 6 or 7, not 13. I don't need to correct him.
You can correct Boris. It's okay. David says Laurel and Hardy are his henchmen.
Oh, she's talking about Adolf Hitler and Oz. I haven't read it, so I probably shouldn't have even commented on it earlier. I just have seen synopses of it, synopsis of it, and have heard people talk about it here and there. So.
And Boris says Hitler and Oz followed the Yellow Reich Road. And Rachel says, this was so great, I have to jump off. I'll catch the replay so I can see the end. Thank you so much, Orlando Collector Deviants, and for showcasing Ron on your Drinking with O.C.D. tonight. No problem, Rachel. I mean, we've been a big fan of Ron's
for a very long time.
For a very long time. And it was only sooner or later that the production manager would get him on the show.
Hey.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. And Rachel, you can tune in every week and see something new and exciting in the world of either independent creators or the con world.
Love, exciting, and you. Come aboard. O.C.D. is expecting you.
And Peekaboo Chew, Dorothy's question. She's still going after it. She wants them prizes.
They were silver.
Dorothy's slippers were not originally ruby. What
silver.
color?
They were silver. It didn't transfer well. They couldn't portray that well in Technicolor, so they had to change the color to ruby. In the books, they were silver.
That's because when they painted the ruby's slippers silver, they got sick and they had to get different kind of shoes.
I thought that was just the Munchkin blood for being ate by the horse.
Oh, could be that too. And of course she says, yep. So, talking about being spray painted silver.
Yes.
Buddy Epson, do you think he would have been a better Tins Man, or do you like how it turned out?
I think he would have had a more rustic approach, and I don't mean that as a pun, but he would have had a more rustic approach to the part. I think you really would have seen him more as one who had been a wood chopper, because he had a lot of roles where he was a rural person, and it would have been a very different approach, definitely. But I think that he may not have been able to convey the love aspects as much. I don't ever see him as much of a romantic,
David said, great job, Ron, because you knew about the slippers.
Thank you, David.
And Boris says, next week on The Love OCD, Carol Channing, Tom Bosley, Charo, and Abe Vagata. Everybody who's dead almost.
Yes, Carol is coming back from the grave.
So I guess that means we're having a seance next week.
I guess so.
Okay.
Okay. I did a little Carol chanting and a little Charo, and that's.
You gotta go like this, be Charo.
Oh no, no, I don't. I'm a big fella. I don't want to make people do projectile vomiting.
Hey, I just did, and I was not wearing my sports bra tonight.
You didn't bring your bro?
No.
You remember those from Seinfeld?
Yes.
It's a bra
Okay.
for men.
And I'm going to tell you, I've seen men that really need those,
Yeah,
especially here in Florida, where even if it's 80, the humidity is so bad you're still sweating up a storm.
It's been awful the last few days.
I liked it better when we had Elsa coming at us. Okay, let's go. We talked about Ziggy zigzagging. Now you said Volume 2 is coming out next year?
Yeah, May of next year.
May of next year. So
Mhm.
I gotta wait like a whole nother year.
Yes, sir. People have been waiting a number of years for the second volume. It's a long story, but
No, 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 no. Who's holding it up? I'm gonna go find them and tell them to speed that shit up.
it's actually the process has been sped up now thanks to YVR Publishing. So we're good.
Now, okay, let's talk about.
Oz digs himself
Oh,
out.
yep, Oz digs himself out. Sorry, it was kind of squished in, so I'm kind of reading it
Yeah.
upside down.
Just before the Wicked Witch of the West is destroyed by water, she mutters a curse, and the curse is for all descendants of the original Wizard of Oz to have to live outside of Oz and for them to be all male descendants and to all have the name Oz Diggs. But they're never able to say where their lineage comes from, that their lineage goes back to the original Wizard of Oz. The seventh, the seventh generation, Oz Diggs the seventh, he figures out a way to try to start regaining his ancestors' magical lineage and get back to Oz. And he goes throughout the whole U.S. on a quest to try to get parts of his ancestors' costume and meets a lot of characters on the way. And there are some evil characters that are trying to stop him in his quest as well.
Now, Boris has another question. David answered it for him, but I'm going to let you put your 2 cents in. Was it true that the backstory of the Tin Man was that he was a regular woodsman who had a spell put on his axe by the Witch of the West to cut pieces off of him, and he'd replace them with metal parts?
He's got the wrong witch, but he's really close. It was the Wicked Witch of the East, and it was um, in vengeance with a servant girl was involved in the situation as well. But it was the Wicked Witch of the East that enchanted his axe. And yes, pieces of his munchkin body actually, because they said he was a munchkin, were replaced with tin.
And David said, Boris, it is indeed a complicated backstory.
Yeah. He was actually
Now,
in love with the servant girl of the Wicked Witch of the East, if I remember correctly. And he eventually finds her in a later book, Mimi Ami, I believe is her name. And because of that complication, the Wicked Witch of the East wasn't going to have any of that. And like I said, she'd have him hack off an arm and then hack off another piece, and each time he'd replace it with tin until he was entirely metal. It's of course a magical country, so eventually, you in the real world he wouldn't be able to do that, but in this fairy country he can eventually make himself all metal. You know.
now is there a kind of a backstory about the scarecrow and the lion like that, or?
Um, not that I have, not in the book. No, it just mentions that the scarecrow was was in the field. The Now Gregory Maguire gives a longer backstory for the Cowardly Lion in A Lion Among Men, and makes it out that when the lion was a cub, he became a. I don't want to create any spoilers, but something happened to him when he was very young to make him that way. But there's no backstory explanation really in the Wonderful Wizard of Oz for the Cowardly Lion being the way he is, and Scarecrow being the way he is, from what I can remember.
Now, I'm going to ask before we go on to your other books, how different? Because I've never read the book, like I told you. I didn't start reading books about the movies till way later on in life. How different is the movie from the book?
You talking about the MGM film?
Yeah, the original.
They diverge quite a lot. In fact, some Oz fans who really like the books don't like the MGM film, and vice versa. Um, for example, well, all right, one of the biggest examples is the whole "it was all a dream" motif. In L. Frank Baum's books, Oz is an actual real country. It's not a dreamscape that you go to, when you fall asleep or when you've been bumped on the head. It's an actual place that you can go to, and we know in the film it had that some. Now it's become a cliche, but it was all a dream. Um, Another aspect is that in the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, all the different sub-countries of Oz, all the different countries of Oz have their own color coding. So, like when Dorothy first goes to the Munchkin country in the MGM film, you notice how they all have these multicolored outfits and all. They're really flamboyantly colored. Well, in the books, they were mostly dressed in blue. But when L. Frank Baum published, he actually self-published Wonderful Wizard of Oz at first. When he published it, there were only so many color choices, even for color printing. So it kind of made sense that he would have different parts of Oz be color coded. So Munchkin Country was blue, Quadling Country was red, Winky Country was yellow, Gillikin Country was purple, and the Emerald City was all associated with green, even though most of it was white until you put on your green glasses. So there are many differences. The poppy fields. Uh, in the L. Frank Baum books, there's a character called the Queen of the Field Mice, and she and her subjects help the characters get out of the poppy fields. Glinda doesn't step in with the snow, and covered up with snow to vanquish the poppy's effects. And in fact, the Wicked Witch of the West isn't even seen as having caused the poppies to happen in the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the book. There are many different examples of changes. The witches themselves. There's a good witch of the north that's not even mentioned in the MGM film, and she's Lacosta, and she's from the Gillikin country, but helps the Munchkins out a lot, and is portrayed as having like a magic staff, but she also has this magic chalkboard that she can write on, and it does magic things as well. So Glinda doesn't, appear in the bubble coming from down south. Glinda's not the Good Witch of the North. Lacosta is. So basically, there are a lot of changes.
Well, I was going to ask because we got the witches from the east and the west, and Glenda was from the south, but there was always one missing.
Lacosta, the Good Witch of the North. Yeah, she was in the books. I even have a descendant of her in my own books, and she's quite the hoot. She's a feisty elderly lady, and she always enacts vengeance on a lot of different evil characters.
So, what kind of witch are you if you're like northeast? I just wonder. You got north. Good is north. Bad is east. What if you got northeast? I mean,
A mix.
I played upon that with. I did an Oz game it's like a Hitchcock parody called Northwest by Northeast Oz, and I played upon that idea too. So you weren't the first to.
See, look.
Yeah.
See, I'm not as stupid as you think I am, huh?
I'll leave that alone.
And Boris says Frank L. Baum or L. Frank Baum is one dark mofo. I think he spent some time in the poppy fields.
I think all authors deal with their dark subconscious in some ways. They do have that side of good, but we all have a dark side, and all authors explore that.
You do.
You're not an author.
I just have a dark side.
That's when you only the side that sits in the car. The sun hits you all the time.
Yeah.
So which one of your books showcases your dark side?
Probably Oz Doesn't Dig GCC at Emerald City. My latest one is fairly dark. I tell people that the Oz Digs the Seventh series is more for young adults, older young adults and adults, because it has some quite graphic scenes in it with some violent uses of magic at times.
Oh, Harry Potter meets Wizard of Oz.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to more books. The Talking City. We talked about that one. What do we got here?
Of Cabbages, Kings, and Even Odd Queens of Wonderland and Oz. This is a Oz Wonderland hybrid that James C. Wallace II and I co-wrote, and we had a whole series. This whole series has been in and out of different publishing houses. It was through several different independent publishing houses. Then finally we pulled it back, and the only book that still exists is book one, this one. The rest are kind of waiting in the wings to maybe be re-self-published, because we stopped our contract with some past publishers with it. But basically, the premise of it is that the Red Queen from Wonderland is going through and is beheading more of her subjects, and she puts them in this, and this is quite dark too. This one's for young adults, into this sarcopharator, which is part refrigerator, part sarcophagus, and she's rolling it around Wonderland to show people, her extreme power. And Princess Ozma in Oz wants to get two of her champions together to go battle the Red Queen, because the Red Queen has just become even more sociopathic than usual. And her champions are actually a pair of Scottish riding boots brought to life with powder of life, Boots McStomp, and he's been spying on the Red Queen the whole time. He's been on her feet the whole time. He's taken one for the team by having to be on her stinky feet the whole time. And White Rabbit, who's a Wonderland character, of course. And the two of them pair up to try to defeat the Red Queen.
Now, when you're talking about cabbages, kings, and even odd queens, so is cabbages mean the heads?
That's a reference to something that happens in the book. It's actually from the Walrus and the Carpenter's little poem. And if I say too much about it, it's going to create a spoiler. But yes, it does have something to do with heads, but it's also something that happens in the book later on. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you were talking how she beheads and keeps them in the refrigerator coffin.
You're real close.
So I'm thinking, because heads are also called cabbages every once in a while, way back in the day. So
good. That's a good thought. You're right. You're on the right track, but I just don't want to create any spoilers for.
Oh yeah, no spoilers. I'm sorry. I do right. That. Just tell me to shut up every once in a while.
No, you're good. You're right.
I always overthink everything. It's like, okay, so that's one of my downfalls is you tell me something and I try to break it down as best as I can.
The time has come, my friends, to talk of many things, of ships and I've missed the line. Ships and seals and something in sealing wax and of cabbages and kings. And this that whole verse from the Walrus and the Carpenter's Coin ends up being a prophecy of sorts in the book. So
Okay.
the cabbages and kings part.
Now, I think this next is an award that you got.
Yes. Since about 2010, I've been formally invited to the Oz Extravaganza Festival, and I did get an award from them about. I've been formally invited to be in as an author in their Authors and Artists Alley, and during the past couple of years, they haven't had the festival because of COVID. Now, every year they've had a Royal Historian of Oz contest, and I haven't entered it because I thought it would be conflict of interest to enter the contest since I was formally invited. Well, the past couple of years, they haven't been able to formally invite me, so I entered it with a story of 500 words or less, and I was one of the adult winners.
Cool.
And the book out there was a prize book that they gave.
Boris has another thing. The Wizard of Oz would be like 30 minutes if it merged with Harry Potter. The second the Wicked Witch of the West shows up, Dorothy whips out her wand and abracadabra, one dead witch, and we see Glinda get out there in her bubble before Dorothy using flu powder to go home.
Yeah, but the Ministry of Magic would get Dorothy for underage use of magic outside of Hogwarts. So there would be all those complications as well.
Oh, see, there you go. I like him. He can keep up with Boris.
Yeah.
So I guess I get geek cred for that, huh?
Oh yeah. And Pika is saying the hanging munchkin is a well-known ongoing hoax, claiming that the original prints of the classic film version of The Wizard of Oz contains accidental footage of an on-set suicide by one of the munchkins, when in reality, what was it really?
It was a big bird. I can't remember the exact type of bird it was, but they had these exotic birds that they let loose around the Tin Man or Tin Woodman's cabin, and the actual wing fluttered. One of the large wings of that bird fluttered up in such a way that it created an optical illusion of a hanging person.
It was a flying monkey.
I've actually seen that photo.
And what do you think?
I don't know.
Well, you brought it up, so
I just say I've actually seen it.
There was a doctored one too. Somebody did a doctored YouTube video of it too, where you could actually see the little pixels had been altered. They tried to make it look like it actually had happened too. That was another thing that happened way later in the modern day.
And Pika says, yep, it was a bird brought on set from the Los Angeles Zoo. See, it's hard to stump Ron.
She's coming up with some good ones, but I thought that she did stump me with that one. With
yeah, but that's a more of a Pokemon reference. I mean, I'll give it to her because she stumped you, and as long as you say she stumped you.
She's probably holding back because I was typing on y'all's page about being scared about about being stumped and all that. She's probably holding back. But she's asked some really good questions.
She is.
And they're actually questions she knows the answers to them. And a lot of some Oz fans don't know. They'll come up to you at events and ask you these questions, especially if they're not real familiar with some of the ins and outs.
Google Oz wonder.
Right.
Boris says, does Oz count as a different realm if it's not technically on Earth? So are interdimensional lands subject to no magic outside of Hogwarts rule? Plus, she can claim self-defense.
Oz is technically on Earth. It's got a magic barrier that prevents people from accidentally getting into it on Earth, and the different ways that people have traveled there are all Earth-based. a cyclone taking Dorothy's house there, a floating chicken coop at one point, a crack in the earth taking them there. Different things. So.
Sorry, I'm sitting here. No Munchkins killed himself on set, but if you look closely in the Scarecrow's cornfields, you can see a few of them doing it.
God.
No comment.
Because
And Pika's winking at you. No comment, Ron. Okay, let's go. You are a guest. I gotta go back to my thing. You are going to be a guest at FarleyCon.
Not a guest. I'm just an authorial vendor there. But
Oh, you're a vendor.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Now is that I'm gonna beat Boris to it? Is this after Chris Farley?
say that again.
I said I'm gonna beat Boris to the question. Is this a convention named after Chris Farley?
No, I don't know where they came up with the name. I'm just gonna be honest.
Now I was sitting here when I was looking at it and it's like, I wonder if Sergeant Slaughter likes Wizard of Oz. And maybe you could have a good in-depth conversation with Sergeant Slaughter about Oz.
You never know.
That would be interesting if someone as tough as Sergeant Slaughter like Oz. Yeah.
Hey man, one of the original G.I. Joes.
And one of the original wrestlers from my childhood.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
He was a wrestler first, then went over to G.I. Joe. But he's the only real life G.I. Joe.
Right. And knowing is half the battle.
Exactly. Well, Refrigerator Perry became a G.I. Joe too, I think. At one point.
You probably had to send off as a premium from bread or cereal or something for him.
And Boris says, so Oz is like Wakanda, where it's hidden by a shield.
Well, what happened
Kinda.
was Princess Ozma got tired of people coming in and out of there, so she did a huge force field on the land of Oz. So yeah.
Now one of the adaptations that I have read, Princess Ozma had magical ways to get Dorothy to be able to come in and out of the shield.
Yeah. There are different ways that Dorothy can go in and out, and Dorothy actually ends up staying there for an extended period, and he even brings
Aunt
Uncle,
Em and
in
Uncle.
In Emerald City of Oz. She brings them to live in the Emerald City. They're basically broke. They're bankrupt, so she has to bring them to the fantasy world for them to be able to survive.
Because the one I read, and you can tell me if it was close. No, they were actually getting like the farm foreclosed on them.
Exactly.
And they were going to have no place to go.
Right. You're absolutely right. And I believe that's dictated in Emerald City of Oz. Yep.
See, I know a little bit. Scotty Young hooked me up.
Oh yeah, Scotty Young and Eric Shanower, they did the whole graphic novel series on all the Oz books.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna tell you that's how I read all of them because Scotty Young's one of my favorite creators. So when I saw he did it, I had to pick them all up and I read them. And so at least you're telling me they were very kind of spot on or close to being spot on.
Eric Shanower is a brilliant Oz scholar, and he's written his own Oz books as well, and he did if I'm not mistaken, he did the scripting for it, and Scotty did the art, right?
Yeah.
We'll see. Eric is also a brilliant artist as well, and does wonderful artwork of his own. But he is a good scripter, excellent scripter, and good Oz expert in general. He's been with the Oz Club for years. So.
Boris says, knowing may be half the battle, but violence is the other half. And okay, what did you think of the movie/musical The Wiz?
I actually got to see the Wiz performed live, not on Off Broadway, but at a historical African American college in Columbia, South Carolina, and I really loved the Wiz because I think it's a big statement about the Underground Railroad and the history of African Americans in the United States, and I think it's got a lot of depth to it, a lot of subtext. And now the movie version, many people don't think that's as good, but it has some wonderful singers in it, and I like the movie version as well. And it tends to take the setting and make it more in modern day New York City, which I think is interesting.
See, I was going to show you because here's one of them that I got.
Oh yeah,
We were talking about it. This is the first one out of the books, but yeah, this is. Like I said, I'm a very big Scotty Young fan, so that's what actually got me to look at it. And
he has a very surreal style, doesn't he? Very interesting. It really fits that whimsical fantasy world, that surrealism that he uses there.
it does. I mean, his style of artwork you would never have thought would fit so well with the Wizard of Oz, but it does.
Yeah.
And I learned more. I'm going to tell you, by reading all these graphic novels, I've learned more about the Wizard of Oz, about the other parts of the country, because like when Aunt Em and the uncle come in and Dorothy goes and they go on a tour of all of Oz and they get to meet like all the little I can't you can hurt me if you want. I can't remember all their little names, but like the little town that's all paper and all that kind of stuff where you're not allowed to sneeze or anything like that because you blow the whole town over.
There was one called Cut and Clips at some point that had paper characters,
That might have been
like paper dolls and things like that.
yeah, but they were all alive.
Yeah, that's kind of like
Yeah.
the China Country. That was actually in the L. Frank Baum books, and then it was used in Oz the Great and Powerful that you talked about earlier. So every character is made of China there, and he based that on his having been a China salesman.
Well, like when you
All
were
kinds of
talking about
little neat sub-countries in Oz like that. But there's one called Bunbury where all the characters are baked goods.
that was actually in the graphic novels because um
The teddy bear country where they're all teddy bears, Utensia. They're like,
well when you were talking about the talking chicken country that was I remembered back to the graphic novel that was in there and it's like
well,
okay.
Belina came from the outside world to Oz and then was able to talk, and then she ended up having babies and they could talk, so they ended up having a population of talking chickens eventually. Yeah.
So I just didn't want you to think I was dumb because I got most of my knowledge from a comic book.
No, I don't think that at all. I think graphic novels are a form of are basically novels. I don't look down my nose at those. Those are a valid literary medium.
Well, it's one of those. I also know that it's a graphic novel, and is it truer to the story? You know how much liberties were took, and I'm glad you told me that they kind of stayed right there. So
Oh yeah, because Eric Shanower was involved, and I'm almost 100% sure. I've read some of those myself as graphic novels, and they are in line with the L. Frank Baum series. Eric made sure of that.
Boris says there's a Sean Connery movie from the '70s that is influenced by The Wizard of Oz.
I know the one he's talking about, but I can't speak on it because I haven't seen it.
I'm trying to think of Sean Connery. My favorite Sean Connery movie is Darby O'Gill and the Little People. I
I
show that
think
to
it may
people.
be, yeah, I think it may have had a science fiction aspect to it, the one he's talking about, but like I said, I haven't seen it. Is it something Zardoz, or something like that? The Sean Connery one?
Yeah, Zardoz.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that, and I've seen a lot of Sean Connery movies. Time Bandits is another good one.
Oh, I love that
Speak,
movie.
speaking of having Munchkins and Sean Connery, and there you go.
That's definitely a reference to. I think that's an Oz reference to having those in there, the little people in that movie, because it's
I
all centered around the little boy's imagination too. As you go through,
oh yeah. Boris says 1974, directed by John Boorman, the Zardoz. Okay, Ron. Let's see. This is the one where you're a guest.
I'm a special guest there. Yeah, I've been going there for a number of years since um, around 2000. Well, not a long time, around 2015. And
Now you don't ride the special bus there, do you?
what do you mean?
What do you? Because you said you were a special guest, so
Okay.
I was making a very bad reference joke.
It was
Yeah,
very bad.
I was mostly just trying to laugh politely and stuff.
How
Um,
dare you?
Oh, Pika's trying to get in everything to the last like 2 minutes of the show here. Question on June 13th, 2014, a Guinness World Record was achieved for what that took place at the Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
Most people dressed as Wizard of Oz characters. Ostravaganza actually tried to beat that record and did not.
Now, I'm going to ask you, what is the record? Since you know what it is, what record it
I don't
is.
know the number. I just know that it was most people dressed as Oz characters. I think I'm just I could be wrong.
No, you got it, because she just come back and says the largest gathering cosplayers dressed as Wizard of Oz characters with 1,093 in attendance.
The
And she said,
Ostravaganza Festival, where I've been a guest author and authors and artists, well, an invited author and authors and artists alley, they tried to do it too, so that's why I knew about that. And I actually dressed as Oz Diggs, the Wizard of Oz, and tons of people were dressed as different characters, but we didn't beat the record that year.
I think I saw a picture of you dressed like that because you had the top hat on, right?
Yep, that was the costume I wore that year.
Because with the top hat on, it made you taller than Darth Vader.
Yeah, that kind of doubles as a Mad Hatter one too. So.
Okay, Ron. So this is the end of the show. I know you usually don't make it to 2 hours. Usually you head out. You don't see the end of the show very often live. What we do here at the end of the show is we tell everybody where you're going to be next, where they can see you and meet you and talk to you, and where can they get your wonderful books.
Probably the best place to get my books is to go to ybrpub.com/shop or just ybrpub.com and get them direct from the publisher because he has pre-signed copies. Or they're actually available in comic shops and bookstores throughout Georgia and South Carolina. Pre-signed. The next place I'm going to be at is a Creators Day in Augusta, Georgia, at Augusta Book Exchange this Saturday. Pretty much a good part of the day. And then after that, I don't remember the date now, but the FarleyCon event will be the next one. And then after that, the Michigan Wizard of Oz Festival.
Okay, Farley's August 14th in East Ridge, Tennessee. Where is that in Tennessee?
I know you know where Chattanooga is, right?
Yeah.
It's a suburb of Chattanooga.
Okay.
It's about 2 or 3 hours north of Atlanta, Georgia.
And Pika is saying, awesome show. Great job, Ron, on my trivia to you. Just don't get revenge on me with the Pokemon trivia.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little Pikachu too.
Now Trish just tagged FarleyCon. I wanted her to tag where you can get his books, and that is, what did you say again? I'm sorry. What?
ybrbpub.com/shop is probably the direct way to get to the actual shop where they are.
I know exactly.
She knows. She's getting that going.
Okay, cool.
She kind of zoomed. She went to go look at something up and then ended up with cat videos. It happens.
I apologize. I'm very easily distracted.
Look at the kitty. Squirrel.
No, squirrel. See, he. Okay, guys. He actually caught what the hat was. Nobody's caught it except for Ron. He is king of trivia in my book because he caught what the hat was.
Should I say it, or do you want
you no, you go for it.
Wilderness Explorer hat, like Russell would wear, and up. It's basically a parody of the Boy Scouts.
Let's see. Wow, I'm going the wrong way because it even has his
Badges.
little badges right here too.
Yep. That's a really cool hat. But yeah, it's a Pixar film. Very bittersweet. It's a brilliant film.
Oh, it is. I don't think Pixar has done a very bad movie.
No,
I don't think so.
I like Pixar stuff.
Yeah. What's your favorite Pixar movie?
Well, I'm gonna have to go with Up because especially the first 5 or 10 minutes of it like takes you to the extremes of laughter and just the depths of sadness within 5 or 10 minutes. What
Yes.
film have you seen that does that? You know,
The
what I'm
Porky
talking about,
movie.
too. I don't want to give it away, but you know what it, how it starts, kind of joyful, and then
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any spoilers left on Up because it's been out for a while.
oh, okay, well, because it goes from the happiness of childhood to death, all within the course of 5 or 10 minutes. You know, that's why I think it's brilliant, and does it all with just music and not a lot of dialogue and just visuals.
Oh yeah. Okay, guys, this is the time I want to thank Ron for being on the show. And lasting the 2 hours. We weren't sure if that was going to happen, but he's already in bed, so it's not like he had to get ready for it.
I got hyped up on coffee, as you can tell before.
Coffee and Coke.
Yeah. Legal Coke.
So I will go through in our area of the events that are going on this weekend. The 7th through the 11th, you got Icon online convention. So that's actually going on now, not like now, but during the days. On the 10th, the Coliseum of Comics is going to have Rob Liefeld in for a signing, and that's at the Orlando, the Colonial store. And then you got the TCC, the Cosplay Connection, is going to be at the Cimarron Skateway. They're having a huge cosplay meetup at the Cimarron Skateway, which is really cool. I think it's going to be a cool event. You never know, we might just stop by just to take some pictures of it because
That'd be a fun one.
that'd be a fun one. Watch all these cosplayers trying to roller skate.
Oh my god, I haven't been on skates in years.
Oh, you're gonna go on skates? I definitely gonna take her over there to take pictures of that.
Hold on, I never said I was going to. I just said it's been a while.
And then on the 11th down in Tampa, you got Tampa Toy Con 2021. And that is the events that are going on this week that we know of in Florida.
Yes.
Cool. And the one that you guys head out to, of course, going to have me there one day. Aren't you heading
Yep.
up?
Well, we Olo is February 13th of 2022.
Yep.
We are. I know we keep teasing it and advertising it, but we're waiting on the fire marshal to approve the floor plans before we can actually say we have tables available.
Is it Fire Marshal Bill? Let me show
Yeah,
you.
I wish
That's a
because
blast from the past.
I know, but I wish it was because then it would be approved like that quick.
I know, right?
But that's the only thing that's holding us up right now. We got the hotel, it's booked, it's ready to go. They're loving the fact that we're going to be there. They want to grow with us, and we want them to grow with us also. And just the fire marshal. And if you've ever put on convention, you guys know all the little hoops and stuff you have to jump through to get one of these things to actually to fruition.
Well, as you know, I was an educator for 15 years, and one program that I started to work in was a combination DJJ and outdoor ed program and traditional school program, and they didn't have the sprinkler systems right in the old facilities. So they had to let the whole staff go. They had to let all the teachers and everybody go because they didn't have the sprinkler systems right. So I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
And, they let us all go on my birthday, so I'll always remember that. This was years ago.
oh. Well, we have two sets of floor plans. If they don't like the one we submitted, then we turn around and we submit the other one. But I've pretty much stayed within all the specs that they've asked for.
Cool.
I just hope, but you know how it is. You never know. They can say everything's good, or they can say, hey, look, when you were drawing that, you were 1 foot over from where you should have been.
Right.
So it all comes down to, do I got a nice fire marshal or an asshole fire marshal? And I'm going to say it's nice, because if they're watching, we love our fire marshals.
He's a nice fire marshal. We love him. Yeah. Well, guys, this has been wonderful. It's been a great experience. I hope that it's been wonderful for the two of you as well. And I really appreciate the invitation, and it's been fun.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for being able to hop on. I know you have a busy day job like we do, so being able to hang out with us tonight was great. And if you want to hold on right after I do the intro, and we'll talk a little bit before we say goodnight.
Okay, sounds good.
So and next week, I forgot, next Thursday, Trish is telling me it's the Silver Lining Spotlight, so we'll have Roland Mann and some of his cronies on here.
Oh, cool.
And so we'll get to pick some brains. Well, at least of his cronies, because I don't think Roland has much brains left.
The zombies.
Okay. Yeah. Before I run the outro, you got to do the great and powerful Ron like you did last night for me.
Okay.
I'm putting you on the spot.
This is Ron, the great and powerful wizard.
Look at that. And you got Mr. Potato Head back there.
Oh yeah.
Indiana Jones.
Got a Yoda potato head. This is actually a guest room that I had to move back into when I became a caregiver. But yeah, I put some of my things back there. There's the Country Bear, Disneyland sign, Indiana Jones potato head, some Oz figures, and you can actually see my late father in a photo up there, and my late grandmother, and my niece when she was a baby, and my mother up there in a big picture, and all. So
see, and I put my mouse over there so everybody can see, with the pointer, and I know nobody can see my mouse pointer. But I'm moving it like, look at that. This is what he's talking about, people.
Yeah, I was trying to move over a little bit where they could see some of the things. When we had talked about doing this, I wanted to put a few things in the background. But I didn't know if they would show or not. They didn't, but I'm glad you showed them.
Oh yeah. Well, if you start doing your podcast, you're gonna eventually have that whole back wall filled with stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then I'll send Boris the link to your podcast, and he can get you.
Okay, sounds cool.
All right, guys, and let me go back. Boom, we exit. Until next Thursday, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.
Have an Aussie week.
Bye.